Hello, and welcome to the Man Down podcast. My name is Ted Knutson. Today, we are going to talk about fashion and masculinity. And we're also going to talk very practically about how do you go about finding things that look great for you. We talk about some brands that we're interested in. We talk about Dye Workwear, who's Derek Guy, and the menswear advice and how much he seems to be changing the discourse online. And I bring props because Patrick goads me into talking about some shit that I'm excited by, which includes watches and knits and trainers. So stay tuned, learn a bunch, or if you really love the podcast, tell us what you hated, what you liked, and how fashionable you are in the comments. Thank you very much and stay tuned. All right, Patrick, we are talking about your actual favorite topic of many favorite topics that you have because you like to hear yourself talk.
Mhm.
Today's topic is about fashion and masculinity.
Yeah. Over the last few years, it feels like fashion has maybe become more of a public conversation than the kind of like remote world that we all knew about when I was young.
Is that all Derek's fault? Is it all dye workwear?
It feels like maybe it is, but it's interesting because he describes himself as a menswear writer and people call him the menswear guy. And I think that's interesting because it does bake in this idea that if you're talking about what men wear, then you're talking about masculinity. Whereas when you're talking about fashion, it does just kind of sound like this slightly like masturbatory intellectual world of like, oh, well, we put whatever crazy shit we want on the catwalk. He approaches it, I guess, from a sociological perspective, and it's much more interesting, right? To think about why do we wear what we wear. So maybe that's a good place to start, Ted. Like, why do you wear what you wear?
There are a couple of different venues in which I
Hmm.
wear what I wear. Those venues being one, out on a date or sort of in public with friends in social situations, and then two, in professional situations. But those professional situations also differ a little bit. So I have been on stage at Wembley. I've been on stage at Sloan Sports Analytics Conference in front of 500 to 5,000 people giving talks. And in those situations, often I'm wearing a suit. And the suit that I'm
Hmm.
wearing, I have suits that were tailored for me after I lost the weight and I want to look good in that situation, but I also want to give off the professional vibe that I'm intending to do so. In the other situations, like I want to feel good about myself and I want to look good and I also want to wear something that shows the people that I'm on a date with or my friends that I do pay some attention to my appearance. And I care
Hmm.
about it.
Okay, so there's okay. Part of it is like this classical idea then of time, place, occasion, right? Which is like the standard idea of like how men dress. It's been around for 200 years. But beyond that, then you're communicating something, right? Like it might be look at my body, but it might also be I take this seriously. It might be you should take me seriously. There's some message that's going through in your clothing.
There's two messages probably. One is look at my body. I do actually hard work on this. I have discipline. Like I care about my appearance and I care about staying fit. Two, I'm very touchable. I wear fabrics
Sure.
that typically are interesting to touch, and therefore it's like, oh, this is actually very nice. And so both of those things are things that I often want to convey in the dating space anyway.
Is that okay? So, is that something that you do specifically to make yourself more touchable to others, or do you find that what attracts you in a garment is texture?
It's more of the second one. I
Hmm.
love good textures. The stuff that I wear at home also is like lovely and soft in textures. And so
Hmm.
it's more for myself. But I have had people comment on it and they're like, oh, this is so nice. I'm like, thank you. I
Mm.
appreciate that. So yeah, there's lots of reasons why you might do a particular thing. I did not pay attention to my fashion for a very, very long period of time. Not that I wasn't necessarily kind of aware of it and interested in it, because this is also a dual motivation thing. I used to watch FTV on VH1 back when I was a
Hmm.
teenager, partly because I found it very intriguing. Like I thought like fashion was really cool, and partly because occasionally you get to see boobs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So it's a dual threat. Like
yeah.
I think that's often a way in. You know, it's a
Very
helpful.
attractive people wearing clothing. Okay, I'm interested in
It's
this. Show me more.
yeah, and I think that for a lot of us, like you kind of said that though, with this slight like, oh, it was like a little bit of a naughty secret I had that I would watch this, and I think that's true for a lot of us. I was always interested in clothing, but I did feel it was a bit of a naughty secret because I, like a lot of men, I think, was conditioned to believe that it's kind of trivial that it's vain. There's some religion in there as well. But also because I wasn't happy with my body for such a large portion of my life, it felt like I didn't have the right to wear certain things. And, like what if I'm not hot enough to wear that? Or if I wear that, it's going to draw attention to me. And if it draws attention to me, what are people going to see? What are people going to think? And I still think that this is an overwhelming thought. Like Derek Guy's actually spoken about this, but it also came up in one of when we did the dating profiles, right? That idea of I don't want to be perceived. Don't look at me. There are lots of people who feel that way. I see a lot of people who dress in such, they have like Instagram accounts, they have YouTube channels where they're talking about clothing, but they're dressing in an incredibly like anodyne and generic kind of way. And it feels like what they want is that if somebody looks at them, that person will say, well, he's well dressed and he's put together. But they don't want those people to look at
Right.
them. It feels, I don't know, like, I guess here's a question. What do you think of minimalism? Because it feels like it's everywhere at the moment. And now I'm thinking about stoicism as well, which kind of feels like emotional minimalism. But what do you think about it overall? Because it seems like it's taken over the male fashion space.
I hate it for a lot of reasons. One,
Yes.
because so when I came from the Caribbean and then I came to the UK. I grew up in the US, but I lived in the Caribbean for about 4 years. And the space that I lived in the Caribbean is very bright and colorful. And then I came to the UK and I got on the tube and everybody was wearing either black or gray or brown. And
Yes.
it was disgusting. It's like hideous. Like, what is wrong with you people? Why do you have like no other colors that exist in your lives? It's not just the weather. This is an active choice. And part of what you're saying is like, if someone were to look at me, I want them to have this image, but in general, I don't want them to look at me. Right? Like
Mhm.
that's what you're telling me is there. So in minimalism in kind of life, I do understand why some people pursue it. Like they find it clean, they find the lack of sort of being obsessed by objects important. Like they're trying to achieve a certain standard of intellect, cleanliness, whatever in their lives that they're pursuing. I've had kids for such a long period of time that it was never a possibility, like not even
Mhm.
remotely a possibility. So like 16 years ago, that's gone. Now I could have it now. I don't really. And there's always some level of triage in my brain in my life that's like, oh, that's good enough. Like people who've lived with me might get frustrated about that. In what you're wearing, it goes back to that thing that we just talked about. And so there's like two different perceptions that you can have here. One is, I think we've talked about this in a number of episodes where it's like, oh, I'm not really worth people perceiving me, or like, I don't want to stand out too much. But then you also want to be valued as a person, right? And like
Mm.
those two things are at odds in many ways. Like you should stand out. You should be the whole you. If in fact the whole you is just wearing like minimalistic elements of clothing and it's exactly kind of what you want in your life and what you want to look, that's fine. But for the most part, like you've set yourselves up to be conflicted on a regular basis. And I think that you should avoid that.
Yeah, I agree, and this is what I kind of want to make the case for today, like that taking an interest in what you wear. Firstly, it isn't just about looking good; it's also about asking who you are and what you're saying to the people around you. And also, I think there's the healing power of it because yeah, I spent a long time thinking there was a long time where there was a time when I was in shape but didn't have any money, and there was a time where I had some money but I wasn't really in shape, and and it felt like they never lined up. And so I was kind of like, well, I'm just never going to dress nicely. And it was only about 3 or 4 years ago, by which time, I had a kid. So I was declining from my, pre-children peak, where I thought, no, fuck this. Like I actually just want to try and dress nicely. I want to dress in a way that makes me feel good. I want to dress in a way that expresses myself. And I have found that it's improved the way I feel about myself, even when I have disappointments with my body. It makes me less at war with my body. And yeah, there's some other stuff going on there. Like I had my first child when I was 31, about to be 32, and now I'm nearly 36. And I do think that generally speaking, you go into your 30s and you think, oh wow, like why do I care about all that bullshit that I cared about in my 20s? That helps in some regard. But also, when I'm wearing nicer clothes, I feel like I'm asserting my right to be seen. I'm saying I'm allowed to look good, and I feel like I'm saying something about myself. And as a result, there's something there which says I it's okay for me to be perceived. It might even be good. Like imagine.
Yeah, and as you say, some people are shy. They don't necessarily want to stand out, and but there are different ways to be shy as well. Like maybe you want to
Hmm.
be perceived, but you don't need to like be the star of the conversation. Maybe you
Hmm.
want people to notice you, or maybe you want people to notice certain elements about you. So where do you want to go with this? Because this is a huge topic, and I have some ideas around it, but I know that it's near and dear to your heart.
Well, I want to talk about the masculinity side of it and the kind of prison of masculinity around clothing. But I also wanted to follow what you said when you were kind of like there was a change where you started taking more of an interest. Like what I want to know what it was that precipitated that change.
I think there were probably 2 times that I started to really pay attention to what I was wearing, and both times were, like, when I was single or coming back into being single. But the second time, which is more recently, like, is much more about me as opposed
Mm,
to about, wanting to find a mate. And as you say, I have both money and I'm in shape now, which is a
mhm,
particularly fun time to go buy clothes and pay attention to fashion. Now, the thing that I've always paid attention to is I love what they call sneakers or trainers, depending on what culture you're from. So I love like different types of shoes. I like loud shoes and I like, quality shoes and like shoes I'm interested in. Then you get to the other side, which was everything that I wanted to avoid when I was fat, which is like, oh yeah,
mm,
there's these quality fabrics and these quality fits and how are you doing this, how are you doing that. Now I love it because it's fun and I've got just a little bit to show off, or I have fewer things to hide, which is the way that I was probably looking at it before. But I was always interested, and I like the combination of color and fit and fabric, and quality of materials. Like that's all just very fun. But I think that's also the thing that holds people back because it's fucking overwhelming.
mm. And I think that probably towards the end of this, it might be worth getting into some like practical stuff for people who want to start taking interest in it. But when you said just then that stuff to show off or maybe fewer things to hide,
Mhm.
what did you want to hide before? And I don't just mean physically, I guess.
Yeah, I was definitely my belly and the fact that I was overweight. And yeah, I've also had like very different physiques throughout my life. When I was 16, I was incredibly skinny and I didn't realize how skinny I was. When I was like 22, I was probably like fine and just starting to play like soccer regularly. I didn't pick up the game until I was like 20 years old, which is
Hmm.
really funny. We didn't have it where I grew up in the US. And so then I was starting to get quite fit in that way, but never lifted. And then I did mixed martial arts and I got thick and like I had like a big neck and everything. Like I look back at photos then I was like, dude, I was like 6'2" and square. That's that feels
Hmm.
pretty unusual. And then I got heavy when I had kids in a startup and like really incredible amounts of work and just coping. And then I lost about 60 pounds over the course of 2 years. Before the GLP-1s existed, so I actually did do it the hard
Hmm.
way, which is great because like now I have a lifestyle that continues to do that, and then I got into a little bit of lifting and long distance running, and so now my body composition is probably my favorite that it's ever been. I'm less
Hmm.
conflicted about it in any particular way. Upkeep is normal and healthy. I get less injured than I would have when I was doing martial arts. But yeah, so it's like this whole different sets of phases and waves that everybody has in their lives, and different times you'll feel differently about your body and what you want to accentuate and what you're happy with and what you're terrified of.
So it sounds like that during the period where you were overweight, it sounds like there was something almost apologetic about your clothing.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I have clothes, but I'm not happy to be wearing anything because like I'm not happy with me and what I look
Mm.
like. And I was historically an athlete and I'm definitely not that now.
Hmm. So the stuff you wore around then, did you did you have the stuff the stuff that you liked, the clothing you liked then, was it more about, oh well, that fits in a way that doesn't cause me stress, rather than, oh, this actually gives me pleasure from the point of view of, fit or fabric or whatever.
Yeah, that's probably true. Although some of it's not. Some of it is just like, I could wear a pair of khakis and, I had an orange sweater, a teal sweater, merino
Hmm.
wool from, I think, Banana Republic, and they were still fun. So I could still have some fun with clothes. But it wasn't now where I'm like, I like my clothes and I like my body. And it's quite a different space for me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the thing is, well, one thing that always makes me laugh is that a lot of guys who are in really good shape dress like shit.
Terrible.
Um,
It's oh, I'm
I because
teenagers in
either the
particular, but
teenagers. Sorry, guys, but you dress like shit generally. But yeah, they either do the thing where everything's like suction tight, so it shows off what they've worked for, which I understand, but actually it kind of diminishes the effect, or they just wear athleisure all the time because, and I get that as well because there was a period I went through where I was like, I'm going to the gym in an hour, so why the fuck would I wear anything nice? And then after the gym, you're like, well, I'll go to the gym tomorrow as well. So like, why would I wear anything nice?
well, there's a third vector, which is that everything's baggy.
Mm,
My kids wear everything is like oversized again, and I know that that's
yeah.
like a cyclical thing and phased, but it's doing nothing for them. My kids are in great shape. They're athletes, and like their friends are, but for some reason, their t-shirts are bigger than my t-shirts are. Like why?
Mm, mm.
And mine
What?
aren't tight. Like this is fine.
Yeah, this is like a normal t-shirt. When I met you, when I saw you in, well, I say when I met you, I've met you before, but when I saw you in Bath, you were wearing a cashmere hoodie, which I was like, this is ultimate. Like, I want to wear a hoodie, but I'm going to upgrade it as far as it can go.
Yeah,
Right?
and it's funny. It's also just funny. Like there's a
Mm,
sense of humor about a lot of what I'm happy to wear that I think
hmm.
is good, right? So yes, a cashmere hoodie is like sort of embarrassing in a variety of ways. You're like, oh, I'm casual, I'm touchable, I'm also a little bit expensive.
Yeah. I was a little bit surprised though with you because I wondered if you would go in that direction. You know, like a load of male influencers now have kind of followed the Steve Jobs idea. They think, oh, well, if I wear very similar things every day, like there's that Alex Hormozy guy as well. Where they say like I wear the same shit every day, and and again, they're seeing clothing as like practical first and stylish second. But it's this idea that clothing is somehow taking my time away from the important things. And then it's very funny that these people quite often spend a lot of time talking about like, oh, how you want to be perceived in the realm of business or something. And I think like, and clothing has nothing to do with that question. Like, really?
So I think some people have, and I've actually dated women who have this issue too, where they want to look good, but they don't want to give the impression that they care too much. But
Hmm.
then actually they're anxious about what they look like. And so like there's this like really kind of wicked evil little cycle that they get stuck in where they need to find ways that they can have practical decision making power over something that happens every day and
Mm.
sometimes multiple times a day. But it needs to not be overwhelming for them. And I think that that's a really tough space to be in. Many of these guys that you're talking about probably like they just want nothing to do with that. And there are certain parts of my life that I understand that, right? So like having some sets of jeans that are basically the same jeans, maybe in slightly different colors that you know are going to fit and they're comfortable for you and you like the how they wash and everything like that. Socks, fucking hate pairing socks, hate it, loathe it. I had to do it for my whole household, and my ex-wife used to buy like individual pairs of socks and then you'd lose one, and then it exists in the laundry basket for 2 years because no one's really certain if that sock is gone or not. I hate the socks element of it. So there are times where like you want to minimize certain elements of this, but most of the time if you're not overwhelmed by it, like you should be making choices that are fun and that maybe have a little bit of a message or that like just bring you joy each time you get dressed up.
And that's the thing. You're going to have to dress one way or another. So I just think it might as well be enjoyable to you and it might as well feel like you because for years, all my clothes, they just never ever felt like me. Never at all. It wasn't, and I don't think that was even something I was aware of. It was more just that I was kind of so at war with my body. I had this attitude that I'd dress better once I was in shape. And as a result, my clothes were apologetic. You know, my clothes were like, well, these need to maybe accentuate the one or two things I like. Like, I'm okay with my arms, I'm okay with my chest, but I don't want them to show off anything else. And all it does is like reinforce that message again and again, which is like, this body is unsightly. I shouldn't be showing it to anybody. And I just felt fucking miserable. I felt absolutely miserable doing it. And it's just so strange to me that like we've decided that this is feminine. And and by extension, I guess that it's gay. To dress unusually, to dress ostentatiously, to dress expressively, even to just dress too nicely. Um, it's all these things, And the whole conversation around men's clothing does seem to come back to like minimalism, and people talk about elevated basics and things like this. And I think about this, the Mertzby Schwanen t-shirt, the one from the bear,
Yes.
the Kami from the bear t-shirt. It's the same fucking idea. It's like, just get elevated basics. You know what? You're wearing the wrong white t-shirt. Wear a better white t-shirt and you'll be stylish. And to some degree, that's true.
Do you remember how
You
the
could
bear begins?
the first episode. Doesn't he quit? He quits the fancy restaurant.
He's moving all of these fucking vintage pairs of jeans in and out of his oven, which he doesn't use
Oh
at home to
yeah,
cook, right?
yeah.
And he's like a jeans freak. He like loves
Mm,
like selvage, and like his jeans probably like, I think they actually describe like how expensive they are. Maybe he's going to like hawk some jeans or he's not. And so I'm like, there's a limit to all of this stuff, because like you can't be a
mm,
jean otaku and not care about like what you look like in different circumstances. And it's also ironic given who the actor is and like what he
yeah.
looks like and what type of fashion model he is. So yeah,
But they're doing the fantasy again, right? They're like, look how good this guy looks, and he doesn't even give a shit. He's cool enough to know about
he
jeans,
gives a
but
shit so much.
he's also casual, and like that is the whole thing. That kind of sprezzatura idea of like, oh, it should appear like you didn't give a shit about how you got dressed. Is I mean, it's never going to happen. It's chimerical. But I think better than that is just leaning into the idea that you do care about how you dress. So for me, when my first child was born, you just become like the world's premier consumer, right? You're just buying shit all the time. And there's a whole industry designed to make you feel stressed that you're letting your child down or potentially putting them at risk of death if you don't buy the right thing. And so we were just buying stuff like relentlessly. And then obviously we're buying clothes, and the clothes you cycle through really quickly. And after a while of that, I was like, I'm not really comfortable with this. And so we were like, well, you can thrift stuff. And so outerwear for kids, like a coat. That kid's probably worn it twice. You can get it pretty much brand new. You can actually thrift loads of brand new clothing for children, like still in the packet, because obviously, their kid just like jumped from 3 months clothing to 9 to 12 month clothing. That happens.
I was literally walking down the street in London yesterday, talking to somebody, and walked past Le Petit Bateau, which is
Oh yeah.
a French children's wear maker, and they go from baby up to like age 4 or something, and they're
Mm,
adorable. They're so cute. My
fuck off
ex-wife
expensive.
loved these things, and obviously they are fuck off expensive. And my children exploded through the period that they could actually wear these things. My children are giants, and so they just poo, 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 and they were born totally normal size. Like, we have friends whose child was like 8 pounds 6 ounces or something like that. My kids were like 6 to like 7 pounds 11, like very normal range. And then basically as soon as they got out the womb, they went whoosh, and they expanded right
Sure.
past. And we, unfortunately, by the time we had the third child, there's there's no point in buying any of these awesome sort of child's clothes. Like, we can either get them secondhand. We might even still have them from the first children, although we actually thought that we were done. So yes, the thrifting thing for kids clothes. Thrifting is great if you have that mindset, if it's fun for you. I
Yeah.
For some people it is not fun for them. For some people it's horrible because nothing ever fits them exactly right, or you can't find the thrift places, that no one keeps the shit that you like, is always a challenge as well.
Yeah.
But it's a really good place to get involved if you're at all interested and want to get stuck into cheaper clothes and test things out.
And I thrift quite a lot, quite successfully, and I'm quite an unusual shape. Like you can know your, like when you know your measurements, and also if you're willing to get stuff tailored, I guess like
There you
that
go.
that helps too. But I was thrifting stuff for my kid, and then I started thrifting stuff for myself. And the good thing about thrifting stuff is like you are going to waste some money, which I've heard described as paying school fees, which I like. But you are gonna waste some money, but it means that you do learn what works for you, right? Because that thing, if you just I think part of this is the issue with just like rich guys who don't really have an interest. They think, okay, well, I will go and buy my jeans from a brand I've heard of. So I will go and, I don't know, I'll buy like some Acne Studios jeans or something, for example. And when those jeans arrive, and maybe they don't fit quite the way they like, or there's something that's off about them, they can't tell what it is, they literally don't have the vocabulary to discuss it because they've never had to learn. Whereas I do think the advantage of thrifting is you look at this entire range of shit and maybe you buy something and it doesn't work for you and you're forced to figure out why it doesn't work for you. You know, is it the cut isn't quite right for me? Is it a bit too low waisted? You know, is it do I prefer a darker wash? Like all this kind of stuff. Is the denim too heavy? Like there all these things I think thrifting's a really good way to start learning about that stuff. And before you know it, you have a vocabulary to discuss fashion. Whereas before you were kind of, it gets into that Devil Wears Prada thing where you're like, well, that's just blue. And I think, yeah, those are just jeans. And I thought that way. I was like, those are just jeans. There's also the environmental reason, I guess. Like we just kind of wanted to limit our consumption. And I basically made a pact with myself a couple of years ago that except for shoes and outerwear, which don't get washed anyway, I was pretty much going to buy only stuff that was made from natural fibers. One, because I'm a hot boy and I get warm and natural fibers are more breathable than fucking plastic. But also, every time you wash something that's got polyester, polyamide, whatever it is in it, it leaches fucking microplastics into the water supply. Like that, they come out in the wash and they go through the wash through your washing machine and back into the water supply. And so I was like, right, okay, this is another area where I want to do something. So that's another thing that I think my clothing says, which is like there's a care for the environment, I hope.
Okay, that's great for you. I don't give a shit. Like I
Yeah.
no, I'm not having that level of self-awareness.
No,
Like
you're buying cashmere, so you're single-handedly destroying Mongolia.
yeah, I'm destroying Mongolia, occasionally some Scottish sheep. Depends on how expensive the cashmere is. Like I have a bunch of Lululemon stuff that is the best, most beautiful stuff to wear, and it's breathable, and I wear it all around the world because I'm stuck in airplane like way too often, and it's very comfy, and it moderates, depending on what sort of climate I'm in. So I actually really like that, and I actually feel like for the most part we've gotten so much healthier that like I'm going to accept a little bit of microplastics risk at the
Mhm.
moment because I'm not drinking lead out of my water pipes and I'm not having asbestos in my ceiling. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying there are levels of self-awareness and self-sacrifice that you are willing to go to that I am probably not, and that's okay. That's all right.
Well, I might not do it if it weren't for the fact that there's a benefit for me, right? Like I also just prefer the feel. Like and obviously with my athletic equipment like that, I guess actually is another exception because you can't just buy all merino wool workout gear and and cotton workout gear just holds so much fucking
Oh
water
God, it does.
that
Like
if you go for a run in it, it's like you're running with like weights on your back.
early on, I remember back in the day, I was doing MMA and like you do it in like a t-shirt or something like that, and the gym gets hot and it gets sweaty and you're
Mm,
just like covered in stuff. And actually, when I was doing it, like we'd have gi pants, and your gi pants are like burlap effectively that have been
yeah.
washed many times. Oh, is yeah. I'm having flashbacks to all of my materials holding water.
God, and the smell, but it's
Mm.
I think with masculinity in fashion, like yes, there's the general kind of shy away from it. It's not for you. There's also the idea that you have to be replicating a particular silhouette, right? So I think when we talk about fashion, it's really interesting how often it turns into a conversation about bodies. Like if you go and see like Derek Guy's conversations with people
All about
on Twitter,
silhouettes.
it's always people replying to him being like, well, that looks good on that person because he's in good shape. That person looks like shit because he's fat. And firstly, that's just fucking wrong. Like, it's very easy to find people who are in good shape who dress like shit, as we've said. But also, it's like based on this Western cultural idea, which actually is Beau Brummell's idea, I guess. Beau Brummell, who was like the first dandy who actually went to my college in Oxford and an illustrious member of the college, and
You went to
famously,
Oxford? I didn't know that.
I did, babe. And who famously called George the Prince of Wales like somebody's fat friend. But his idea was like colors should be muted, and what we should be doing is accentuating the masculine silhouette, which means obviously like narrow waist, wide shoulders. If we can accentuate the chest as well, so you still see that in like the way that English suits are cut to give you the appearance of like this big full chest. And I don't know. To me, it feels like all it does is tell people again that there's something that's not for them. There's something that you can have, but only if you're one of like the beautiful elite. And that trying to get into it means either, well, you can either give up because you'll never be there, or you can try and fake it by using padding and stuff to try and make out that you're an attractive type of man. And I just fucking hate this stuff. I've become so enraged by it over the last few years. And ideas about masculinity in clothing just feel like they're absolutely everywhere. So much clothing is obviously based on military wear. In the US, whenever I talk to Americans about clothes, they say the most insane shit because it's just a culture that I'm not familiar with. So I will talk to Americans and they'll say, "Well, I'd never wear that because that would like people would stare at that if I wore that where I live. But I'll wear cowboy boots, because those are normal." And I'm like, "Motherfucker, like have you seen cowboy boots?" Cowboy boots to me are like drag queen shit, and I mean that in a nice way. Like, but they're drag queen shit, and so all these kind of cultural ideas come into it, and it's all just slop, and ultimately it just ends up with people. It feels like disreputable actors trying to weaponize people's sense of self-loathing in order to sell their idea of what being a man means.
So I understand that. I also feel like so much of the discourse is like people's musical tastes.
Hmm.
People will shit on everybody else's musical taste because they're not yours. And in many cases, people are taking musical tastes to their absolute extreme, partly to find like the things that are most beautiful or that like, they want to have like a grading critique system of art. Like because that's a thing that they love and some people respond to it. But it's also unique unto you. And when you
Hmm.
take it and you bring it back to that, it's like, all right, find the shit that most appeals to you. Find the looks, the fashion that most appeals to you. Take that to whatever extremes that you want to. That's the way that we should be pursuing this. And
Hmm.
if you look unique and weird because that's how you like to look, because you feel most at home in that, or you like the attention that you're getting, awesome. Pursue that.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. I love it. But don't let other people scare you off of shit. Like that is the exact wrong way to go about life in every circumstance. And particularly in circumstance where art is involved.
Do you think that you were scared out of wearing certain things in the past?
Yeah,
Or do you think it all came from inside you?
I think there's both. There are plenty of times where I did not want to be perceived in a particular way, or I knew that people would look at it and judge me as something, and so
Mm,
I didn't want that. And then the other side of it was a lot of what you talk about, which has been a long history of both of us, where we had body dysmorphia or some sort of self-loathing about our bodies, and so we didn't want that type of attention at the time. But what I will say is that I always, I think both of us are a little bit performers. That's why we have a podcast among, and so I was kind of happy to have different times where I was able to have some level of fashion level performance. And one of the things I wanted us to get to at some point in this whole conversation is like even if you're going minimalist, you should still always have pieces that you want to accentuate, pieces that will gather attention, pieces that should be noticed
mhm.
because I kind of love that, and I have watches that do this type of thing as well. I didn't become like a crazy watch person because like I realized that that was an endless black hole of money.
Yeah.
But I have like a couple of minimalist watch pieces that are like totally fucking chill. But if you're a watch nerd, you're like, ooh, I love that. That's hot. And then I have a couple of really loud ones because like sometimes you just want to peacock and you're like, yeah, let me just do this fucking thing too. But with fashion in general, I think that that's true. And what many people have done now is they've done that with the shoes. The peacocking element
Yeah.
comes from the shoes.
Yeah, or the watch. So, like, I think you're right before. Yeah, watches and sneakers, like sneakerheads, like these are people who understand that you can do really loud, insane shit, but you are kind of just doing it. Quite often, you're only doing it for people who get it, right? But again, like that is where I think the idea of this being about muted, conservative, reserved masculinity really starts to break down because clearly there are areas where it's okay to show off a little bit. So if you were just building a wardrobe now, and let's say the most of it is like relatively basic, like interchangeable kind of normal stuff, what are the areas you would choose to peacock in?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think I did a bit of this. So when I when I got enough money that I could spend money on some nice suits, right? Um, I I did it. I was hot at the time, so I mean, I ran hot because I was heavier, and I did it with materials. So I went to Boss and I got a tailored Boss suit, and it was like sort of the light, lovely silk. And then often you can peacock with your tie. Like peacocking with your tie is
Mm.
like really fun there. So this is in male sort of masculine space. Like this is even when we have a uniform and we're keeping to the uniform. Like how do you accentuate certain elements? And so I was perfectly happy wearing a navy suit, but then having like some elements of pink involved, or like something that like
Hmm.
is a bit loud there. And sometimes you could do it with like cool ass shoes, even if they're male dress shoes, where you're like, yeah, check out these things. In fact, Kaylee commented at one point that I had these funky ass blue shoes on at a StatsBomb conference. He's like, I cannot believe how much I love these shoes, and they didn't quite fit perfectly, which is why I didn't bring them out all the time. But they were
Were they
fun.
sorry? Were they suede? Were they leather?
They were leather, and
My God.
yeah, they were leather and shiny and blue, but sort of like a lighter, like a true blue. So that's like in the male sort of uniform space. If you're just doing your at home space, like first of all, I hate the idea that you just have white and black t-shirts. I despise that.
Mm.
I fucking hate everything about that. I I do. I cannot tell you how much that makes me angry. And in fact, I have this conversation with my son. So like I can tell you that
Mm.
it comes back home. I was like, dude, you look great. Why don't you show yourself off a little bit? And he's in that space where showing himself off is terrifying. And maybe it always will be.
Mm.
So yeah, like what are you wearing up top is like a first question, because this is the framing of your head. And so like that's a big deal. And for me, because I run cold all the time, I end up having a lot of long sleeve stuff, and sometimes I double layer in the UK wintertime. So like, but sweaters or jumpers is like
Mm.
the space where I gravitated initially. Obviously, I have a lot of great dress shirts because those are fun and you can wear them with or without suits. But yeah, sweaters is a big one, and then obviously just some of your t-shirts that have some level of character and interesting elements about them, but shows you paid a little bit of attention.
Yeah, I like to hear that because I think that knitwear is a really good place to spend a lot of money as well.
Also, Schitt's Creek and David. Oh my God, my knits! Like I have all of these fabulous knits that I can wear, and I love Dan Levy. He's fun.
But everyone should have like 3 to 5 fabulous knits, in my opinion. But
Absolutely. In
but I
fact,
think
I feel
go
like
on.
I want to bring things back here. We'll start with the watches. Like I've drugged Patrick into this because I'm getting excited about
No,
stuff.
this is
But
great. This is what we wanted. We wanted Ted to get really excited to show us his expensive shit.
yeah, it's not that expensive. That's the thing. You had to be careful not to be that expensive, because like watches can go endless. Like just fashion in general. But I can't find the one that I was thinking about that I wore yesterday. I've got it somewhere in my set of stuff in my house.
Hmm.
But in a watch perspective, like Hodinkee is the place where I started to learn. Obviously, they've done very successful. I think there's a guy named like David Baldessari that does YouTube videos as well, and then a Magic guy, a Magic the Gathering guy, he's got like 1 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, where he refurbishes and repairs old watches, and he
Cool.
he does like all of the actual craftsmanship, like redoing. It's brilliant, and he also has sexy like radio podcaster voice as well, so he's very
Mm.
very delightful. His name's Marshall Sutcliffe. All right, so we're gonna start with like the one that I wanted to show was the low key one, where like watch nerds know what it is, but other people are like, yeah, whatever. It's just like a black watch. So right when they came out, I bought a Tudor Back Bay black ceramic one,
Hmm.
and it won the award that year for like watch design in a particular range. And it's beautiful and it's subtle, but also glows in the dark, which is kind of a fun thing. It's heavy. It's like fucking heavy, and it's like it's got an oomph about it that for a watch nerd, you're like, yeah, I respect that choice. Everybody else is like, I don't give a shit. It's just like some sort of dive watch that looks kind of nice. This is a Seiko, and it's like a
That's nice.
yeah, exactly. It's a cocktail watch, and
Is it blue or black? The dial? I can't.
it's navy. It's
Yeah.
like this is like a tea time. It's like sakura blossom nighttime or something like that. Very cool, and it's got some level of detail on it. Please don't come rob my house for my not so expensive watches. Seiko actually is a company that is highly respected among watch people. even though they don't have like really expensive watches. In the same way that like G-Shock is like, the cheapest version that people like, that's kind of a cool watch nerd thing. Seiko is like actually quite good craftsmanship for the price range. And then Grand Seiko is their premium brand that has the
Fancier,
same
yeah.
sort of thing. When I was buying these watches though, so like that one's really nice, cocktail. I think it was about 400 pounds when I bought it. So not crazy expensive. And then the Back Bay one is like the subtle one. And then I wanted something loud. And so the loud one is this Breitling that is like, it's an NHS. It's like a COVID pandemic limited edition one that is rainbow dialed.
Yeah, man.
And I was like, all right, so this is the one that if I want something loud and I want to wear it, like this is something pretty cool. And so the first time that I ever got money out of StatsBomb, I bought a couple of watches. It's not crazy expensive, but it's enough to say that's pretty expensive. This was the
What is
final one.
Can
Yeah.
I ask? Can I ask with when you started going to Hodinkee and stuff? What was it about watches that spoke to you more than other clothing items?
So I lived on an airplane for a lot of the later period of StatsBomb, whether you're going to visit investors or customers or different retreats for teams and visiting Cairo, which is where our collection group was. And I was like, I would love to have some things to like take with me that are interesting that you could collect. Watches in particular are engineering that is also artwork. And to me,
Mm.
that spoke really in interesting ways. Like it spoke to me.
Mm.
And so I was excited about that. This is the last one that I kind of bought before I paused buying any watches at all. And this is a
Bulgari.
Bulgari.
Oh
Yeah, it's a
shit.
Bulgari sort of like Pepsi, but it's also aluminum. And it's like really light and thin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got that coming out of Milan on the trip that I saw the Milan Derby at the San Siro. And I
Mm.
happened to be in duty free and passing the Bulgari. And I was like, I'll take one of those. That's nice. Again, not super expensive and save it on taxes.
So the thing that links them all, well, except for the murdered out Tudor that we haven't seen, is they're navy and silver, right? So they're very traditionally masculine. If I took you into a skincare shop and we went to the Clarins men's section, it would
Yeah.
be navy and silver, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I as you can see, I wear a lot of blue, but that's mostly for the eyes. Speaking of navy, you wanted to see these. So these were the shoes.
What are those?
Yeah.
God
So
damn.
these are Paul French, I think, or Paul Smith. Paul Smith. And I saw them, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna wear
God.
those. But the problem is, I lost too much weight, and so they don't fit anymore. They're loose, and you
No one
can't
tells
fix
you
that.
about this when you lose weight, that your feet are
No.
going to change shape. In the same way, I think people don't warn pregnant women that they might have to like buy a whole new shoe
Oh
wardrobe.
yeah, that's brutal.
Like
Um,
after.
so I only recently started wearing Adidas, and I'll show you the ones that flip me over. But I like these. They're a little bit loud, but not too loud. They're like just
Mhm.
loud enough to be noticeable. Sometimes the Adidas don't fit me correctly. I've always been like for my running shoes, it's always Asics and Nikes. And so pretty happy with those overall, but I've started to branch into kind of the current brand, which are actually old school versions of Adidas, except for these. So I have two collaboration sets of Adidas that I fell in love with, and I fell in love with them because they were Pride collaborations, and I actually rebought these
Cool.
because I lost them, and so these are like the most recent ones. I find them beautiful, and I'm very happy to have Pride going on, and yeah, so
So for the listeners, Ted showed me a pair of like mint Sambas before this,
yeah.
and now these are like white Adidas sneakers, but they've got like the Pride and trans like colors like down the sides.
Yeah, so these are white. I think Rich Benisi collabs, and I think these ones are campus ones. I also got a pair of Stan Smith ones that have rainbow for the eyelets that you put the threads through,
That's fun.
and again, these are ways that you're representing some fun, but you're also representing a bit of your values in some situations.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I find that to be something that I'm happy to wear on my feet and to tell people about.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like you could do this with pins and stuff as well, right? Like in badges, like that's a kind of classic way of doing it. It feels quite 90s, but I like it. My wife and I are wearing like trans pins and things now.
Ooh, I
But
got in
I
trouble
think
for that.
really,
So Egypt is very Muslim country, and
yes.
we gave away a rainbow pin, a rainbow stats bomb pin at our last conference that I was in charge of, And the Egyptians felt like that was a little uncomfortable. I was like, man, so first of all, you're in the UK. And I'm not forcing anybody's thing on you, but like our company definitely supports women's football. And if you don't know anything about women's football, like probably more than 50% of the women's football players are bisexual or lesbian.
Hmm.
It's just how that's actually how a lot of women's professional sport works. Like we support this, we've always supported this. It's always been part of our mission. And so, like, if we were in Egypt, we probably wouldn't do this in respecting sort of the local cultures. But this is part of the company and has been a very prominent part of our mission. You don't have to take the pin, but I didn't want to not offer people the pin because like that
Mm.
would be exclusionary. So or just making assumptions about them that would be
Yeah.
unfair.
But I like this. I like it when fashion though can push back against these things. Like so for a lot of people listening to this, they might be thinking, okay, well, if you're in London or if you're in a major city, then you can kind of wear what you want and people don't really care. But where I am, maybe I'm in a smaller place and I will stand out more.
Mhm.
But this is where I think that like fashion is quite a nice way to do that because actually, I think one, people are often much more receptive to it than you expect they're going to be, and two, you can do it in a slightly subtler way. So whether it is wearing a silhouette that is not a traditionally masculine silhouette, like maybe you get into like Yoji Yamamoto or whatever, or into the Rosenrot, which is really fucking cool. You want to dress like a futuristic ninja from Tokyo 3000. Like you can actually do that, and it's completely fine and normal. And I think that outerwear is actually a really great way to do it. So I love shoes as well. I'm not a sneakerhead. I find the sneaker world to be just like that's too far for me. That's like black
Casual
tar
about
heroin.
mine. I am
Yeah.
casual about mine, but I also love the fact that like I can go on some of these sneakerhead websites and rebuy the ones that either I've lost or
Yeah.
I've worn out. Like that's a thing that you didn't used to be able to do.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that
true.
would be really hard. Anyway, continue on because you're.
No, it
We'll get to
was
knits in a bit.
No, you got to be careful as well. Like it's the same with watches, right? So with sneakers, I'm like, this is just too much for me. With
Yes,
watches, I'm consciously holding myself back because I have a couple of friends who are really into them, and I was like, I cannot acquire this habit. Like it's not good for me.
I had the same realization, and I'm not an addictive personality in like almost any phase of my life, and I'm not really a huge collector either.
Hmm.
And so like I'll buy things that I like, but like there's just limits. And so when the Rolex prices like went crazy, I was like, there's some beautiful ones, but I don't want to pay for that. And I mean, Patek Philippe does incredible watches, and I refuse to go down that path until like I have a lot more money, which tells you exactly kind of where I'm at in my budgeting. So yes, you have to be careful about all this stuff because same thing with fashion, right? Like, I know some people who only shop with Brunello Cuccinelli. And that's like, yeah, you want to drop like,
That's a pose, man.
30K every single time that you walk into that place. That's nuts. You can.
That's a fucking pose as well, man. Because like, there's stuff that is not like, it's not even the best necessarily if it comes from Cuccinelli.
They
Like,
swear by it.
there's stuff there that is like, obviously Cuccinelli is amazing, but like, yeah, I think again, you're seeing people like making a point, right? That is not really about the clothing. It's like I've got to show who I am. I think that outerwear like is a really good way to start. Like quite often when you see guys get into fashion, I think you see them get into shoes, watches, and outerwear because they understand that I can just wear like jeans and a t-shirt, but I can wear a cool jacket. And that does pull everything together. I just think as well, maybe there's something in the male soul that just thinks like a cool jacket is the solution to all life's problems. And so when I was first kind of getting into clothing seriously, I was just like jackets on jackets on jackets. I just need to get all the jackets that I can, all the different colorways that I can. And you feel a little bit more adventurous there than you do like I think as well, and maybe this is something that I'll move past at some point. It is easy to feel with male fashion that you are basically stuck in some kind of trouser, maybe a short, and then a t-shirt or shirt on top. And that's basically all you've got to work with. So I think you've got to take the fun where you can get it. And if you live at a place where there's like a different kind of like cultural dress available to you, then I think you should try and explore that. But also a place you can fuck it up a bit is with jackets and with things like hair. That's also something where you can try. But one thing I was reminded of as we were talking about the watches was ages ago, the two of us and Rishi were talking before an episode started about jewelry, and you guys said that you both tend towards silver jewelry,
I
and
have nothing.
we have nothing now. But
No, I
I
never.
okay, but your watch okay, your watches are silver, and when you had wedding rings, what were they?
Multi-tone.
Okay. Interesting. That's interesting. But I think when I was younger, I was convinced that I liked silver, and all I wore was silver. And it was only as time went on that I kind of allowed myself to be into gold. And again, I think part of it was like gold is somehow a bit peacocky and maybe therefore a bit feminine, and I'm going to be kind of showing off in some way, and people are going to look at me and think I'm a twat.
I have argued with girlfriends about rose gold.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are you pro or anti?
I'm pretty pro. I think it's
Hmm.
really interesting. And my last wedding ring was Cartier, and it was rose, um, I think 18 karat, and then platinum. And so I liked the balance between the two. And the first one was just two tone that got thrown into the sea.
Mm.
But no, it's I mean, these are all places to explore. And I struggle. I will tell you, like your thing about jackets, like I struggle with that. I tend to go practical and basic, even if it's something that I like, because
Okay.
I'm scared of making a big expensive mistake in that area. And I
Hmm.
always have been. I wanted to get a kind of a leather bomber for a long time. And
Oh, hello.
yeah, yeah, because I think that it fits the form, and maybe we should, as part of our forays into
Oh my
London, you
god.
and I should go like shopping for a leather bomber and
Yes.
video this. Let's come back to the knits real quick because I actually think it's really important, and it's also a place where we can have some practical advice on places that are good to pick up either basics or sort of accentuated things. So
Hmm.
this is, it's actually pretty thick. It's just a brown, lovely uniculo knit, and it's soft. It's easy to wash.
Oh, we've
It.
lost you, Ted. I'm
Oops,
looking at
sorry.
your.
I've gone away.
You've also
Anyway,
got the pride colors on the keyboard.
you can't not buy the keyboard like that. Oh no, we've completely lost me. The
Oh
AI
no.
camera has just decided to veto me. Come on, baby. There we are. We're back. Yeah. So Uniqlo actually, I my first experience with Uniqlo, the airline lost my baggage as I was going to a pro tour in Japan, or maybe it was a pro tour, maybe it was a Grand Prix to do coverage. So I have like
Hmm.
no clothes as I've arrived in Japan, and the airline gives me $125, and I'm like not sure that my credit cards will work here. And I'm like freaked out, but I've got a $125 voucher in 2000.
Fortunately, you have the sort of body shape that is very easy to find clothes for in
This
Japan.
is this is exactly the case as well. And so I'm like desperate. I'm like, "Can you please tell me where I can get clothes here in this country?" And they're like, "Uniqlo," and they sort of like pointed on the map of the mall that I was going to needed to go to. I was like, "All right, fine." And actually, even in 2005, it turned out that they made things just large enough for
Mm.
giants like me to be able to wear. And they have been an ever-present, expanding portion of the basics library for the world now. And so if you're looking for a good place to buy stuff that's like pretty well made, sensibly made, doesn't always fit you right though. I will say that. Like I've had some trousers that I thought would be better than they were because they're not perfect for every body shape. I
Mm.
always find that to be pretty good. Where do you get your basics from?
I don't really have a go-to place for basics. I used to. And I do have, like I have a couple of Uniqlo t-shirts here and there, there's some stuff like that, but gradually it's phased out and I tend to be one in, one out. So I'm rarely going in bulk buying. But I think Uniqlo is a great place because you can get all the like pretty standard stuff. It's not going to be like too offbeat. Most of their stuff is fairly unisex as well. Like you can probably explore in the women's section, especially if you've got a smaller waist, I think. And it's not it has a lot of the advantages of fast fashion in that there's like a really big range and it's really accessible, but it's not actually fast fashion in that I think it's made a little bit better. A lot of it's a little bit more sustainable. And the Uniqlo stuff that I've had has actually lasted a really long time. Plus they do interesting collaborations. So there's Uniqlo U, which is the line designed by Christophe Lemaire. And for those who don't know, Lemaire is a incredibly cool fashion brand, which everyone should check out. But he designed some shit for Uniqlo. And it's really cool. It's a little bit more fashion forward. But I think Uniqlo is definitely, if I were building a wardrobe from scratch, that is where I would go for like underwear, socks, shirts, t-shirts. I'd probably get my jeans elsewhere. I'd get my knits elsewhere,
Mhm.
maybe. But I
Well,
don't know. I don't know. A
the
sweater
knits
I'd
are
get there for
fine.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It's not
tried that.
because it's not yeah, I'm not saying it's because they're because I don't like them. I just think it's like, it's nice to mix it up a bit.
Oh, I totally agree with that. But occasionally I'm just like, look, I need a jumper in a particular color or a sweater in a particular color. I want
Yeah.
they're also pretty good at having like an array of clothes that go for different warmths. So
Hmm.
sometimes they've got heat tech, sometimes they've got cool tech type things that they've got there, either in their basics or just in the thickness of their knits. In the United States, in slightly more upscale, I used to buy more from Banana Republic, which I think is
Sure.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty consistent and good quality. It's gone from the UK. It was here when I first was here. M&S has pretty decent quality. It's fine. Like the big box shops are like
Mm.
okay, but nothing that you're super excited by. And then I bought this, and this is actually, I don't know if we're gonna lose me again, but this is a cashmere from John Varvatos that has
That's
like,
nice.
yeah, it's got an ombre or it's got
Yeah.
shaded style that goes through it, and I just immediately fell in love with it. And I was, but this was also another time where somebody lost my luggage, and I had to go buy a bunch of clothes in a mall in order to replenish for a 12-day trip, which was a
Oh
fucker.
my God.
So John Varvatos, if you're looking for fashion, and also if you're in America, there's a shop called Nordstrom's The Rack. So Nordstrom is a
Yeah.
big department store, but The Rack is like their discount stuff. I will go in there at least once a year and buy a bunch of basics that are like 60, 70% off. And also they have like legitimate good brands
Hmm.
that they'll get their consignment stuff to then sell on sale. Varvatos will have some stuff there, places like Lucky Brand, Tommy Hilfiger, like there are all sorts of brands that come through there. So that's a useful one. But John Varvatos is has been a long time fashion one. First time I ever heard of it was on Queer Eye in the United States, the OG Queer Eye.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to go there. That looks interesting." And sometimes I hate their shit, but a lot of times I like it way more than I expect to. This t-shirt, this V-neck is another one. And I don't usually buy designer t-shirts, but it fit me really well and it's linen. So I was like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah. A lot of Avatar stuff is quite punchy design wise, which I like. But I
Mhm.
mean, I can understand that. Yeah, sometimes you're gonna love it, sometimes you're gonna hate it. I think what to go back to knits. I think this is an area where if you've got a limited budget, you should 100% thrift. I will make this
Yes,
argument relentlessly.
absolutely.
So we've actually lost quality affordable knits. Like there are still companies that make knitwear as well as it was made 30 years ago, but they are very expensive now, and it's like places like Inishmaan, which make it fucking islands off the coast of Ireland, like that. Or like to get good now it's very easy to get cashmere, but to get good cashmere is increasingly difficult because of like the state of Mongolia being kind of like ravaged by drought as a result of cashmere overproduction. Like it's really hard to get good knits, and you often find that they're adulterated with stuff like polyamide, like polyester. And even if you don't care about the environmental factor, that shit is plastic, and it will make you feel like you are wrapped in cling film. It will keep you warm and not in a good way. It just seals everything in. It's very unpleasant. So I think here you have to go like wool, silk, linen. I've got a 100% linen jumper from Oliver Spencer, which I just love.
I
Cotton,
have
obviously, as well.
I have a linen suit that I bought
Mm.
for the dress code for the one time that I went to a sex club.
What was the dress code?
White,
Breathable fabrics.
yeah, white summertime,
Oh,
like
okay. So fucking
upscale white party. Yeah,
yeah. Come and check out the breasts and thighs in Colonel Sanders' bucket. Like
I'm
it's
not saying white people. Like, it was just a white.
yeah,
The
yeah,
dress
but a
code was
white a
white.
white suit is Colonel Sanders shit.
I look like Pitbull, so
Yeah, I guess that's a marginal advantage. I
Mr.
forgot that
Worldwide, baby.
you're the huge Pitbull fan, but
I'm
like
not. No, I'm a Flo Rida fan. I'm not a Pitbull fan.
you
Thank you
love
very
Pitbull.
much.
Um, but yeah, I do think with knitwear, like if you thrift knitwear, it's better made. It just is better made, and it lasts pretty well, generally speaking. Especially if it's wool. Wool is made to last. I really, really heartily recommend it. Like the manufacturing standards are better, the fabrics are better. So I have a 100% alpaca jumper that I thrifted. That's like made in Peru, and it is beautiful. It's one of the like, it's like the pride of my wardrobe. It cost me 25 quid to thrift it, which is actually kind of on the high end for like a thrifting price, to be honest with you. If I wanted to go and buy that new, it would be hundreds of pounds. Hundreds of pounds. And actually, this goes for some outerwear as well. So, another pride and joy, I have a 100% Shetland wool coat, and I love this thing, man. I love it so much. I got it off eBay. It cost me 50 quid. Um, And honestly, every time I wear it, I feel like $1 million. Like it's one of those things that you can put over anything and it pulls it together and you look incredible. And I've had more compliments on this item of clothing than I've ever had anywhere else. I was in a coffee shop like last month and a woman came up to me and she said, "Can I just ask where you got your coat? Because I'd really like to buy my brother one like that." And I texted my wife and I was like, "This fucking woman just came up and asked me where I got it." And she was like, "It's interesting that she said brother, that she felt the need to say brother. What's going on with that?" And the other time I got a compliment on it was in the fucking Eurostar coming back from Paris, and a little neat, handsome, well-dressed Frenchman came up to me and he said, "C'est hyper beau, votre manteau." And he said, and he was like, "Where's it from?" Um, and I said, "I thrifted it. It's vintage." And he was like, "Oh, well, it's really beautiful." And I was like, "Wow." A compliment from a woman I don't know and a compliment from a little slightly bitchy French man is absolutely the pinnacle. I will never achieve anything more than that in fashion. But again, I think like that coat, if I wanted to go and buy it new, would be 1,500 quid. Like
Ah.
truly 1,500 quid. Like,
See, this is the thing about the coats and the jackets that like always scares me, and but like thrifting scares me too. So I
mm,
am the people that we're trying to talk to, and that some elements of this I'm overwhelmed by. The other place
okay.
that I like, there are two other places that I buy consistently from. I really like Penguin because Penguin has like bright stuff. They have fabrics that I like, so like they're a fun place that has basics. And then I like Boss, but I can only buy Boss in the UK and the US because it's just different in most of Europe where they're expecting people to be much smaller. And so you have to understand
Mm,
like some of where things get shipped is slightly different. I don't like all Boss. In fact, like most Boss is like bullshit. So I like the elements of Boss that work for me.
mm,
And then I leave almost all of it behind. Now, it's not to say that I can't like lots more stuff, but again, I need to simplify, how much time I spend on this because unlike Derek Guy, I'm not going to become the menswear guy. I'm just somebody that likes to wear clothes that I like.
And even Derek Guy, man, he says that he hates thrifting. So I think if you hate thrifting, there are places that'll do it for you, right? There are places that like curate vintage. So I know there's Wooden Sleepers in New York. There's Brut in Paris. Like they make their own shit, and honestly, it's one of my favorite shops in the world. But they also next door have a vintage store where they curate all the vintage, and a lot of it is European military. Be careful with the European military, just in case. Um, but then they'll kind of do it for you, right? Rather than you having to trawl through.
But you do have to pay for it. So like that's
Yeah.
the difference. My most recent experience with thrifting was I was going out with a model and she only wore vintage stuff from 70s, 80s, and like early 90s. Like that was her whole wardrobe. And so we spent like 3 hours going through stuff in Brooklyn as she tried to find like a couple of pieces that she loved. And I tried not to gasp at how much the prices are on these very old pieces. But
Mm,
she also did this professionally for a while. So she would buy bulk clothing and then resell it
sure.
in her shop. She's also the person that I am proudest of taking like my best photo of a person ever. Like it is this
Oh,
amazing
sure. Yeah.
photo
Yeah.
where we're in a lobby, I think at the Pierre, so just off the park in Manhattan, and she's just looking amazing in like these red trousers and these glasses, and like the whole lobby looks awesome. Very, very proud of that photo. So occasionally, if you go out with really hot people who have very eccentric taste in clothing, take photos of them because you'll be proud of them and they'll appreciate it too.
The other thing you can do when you're in one of those thrift shops as well, and you're a bit overwhelmed, you can like close your eyes and run your hand along the rack of clothes, and just stop when you feel a texture that you find interesting.
Ah,
I like to do this sometimes. If there's too much, and I'm like, I'm not desperate. Then if you run your hand along and when your hand stops on something, it's often something interesting, something that feels nice. And obviously something that feels nice might be something that you want to wear. It tends to be as well, like with the exception of some knits, it tends to be as well like more sort of natural fabrics. Like there often other things will have that kind of unpleasant feel. But if you
mhm.
don't like things to be clingy, you're going to feel that with your hand. If you like things to be breathable or to have a bit of slubby texture, then you'll feel that with your hand. So that's one thing. But like I think I can give some practical thrifting advice.
The problem that I have when I go thrifting is that I end up with Macklemore song in my head the entire time, and it plays on repeat over and
No one wants
over.
that.
I actually don't mind Macklemore. I think he's actually a pretty decent guy, but
I think he seems like a perfectly nice man.
and talented. You and I are not going to agree on music. This is fine. We're not going to get there. We can talk about fashion and appreciate
He
that
might
together.
have talents I don't know about. I'm just not sure they lie in the musical realm.
That whole song is making fun of R. Kelly. Who doesn't want songs to do that?
But then that's a talent for humor rather than a talent for music. And
A
even
lot of
then,
Eminem's talent early on was humor as well. A lot of good rap is humorous.
is Eminem good rap?
Yeah,
I see the thing. Okay, like the thing about Eminem is, I think Eminem is like one of the most technically like gifted rappers that we've ever
absolutely.
had. But I just don't really like 99% of his music. I just don't. And he really went off the boil quite early, right? He has kind of like 2 to 3 like good albums, and then he goes, I don't know. He becomes like the corniest motherfucker who ever lived. I admire the technical skill though. I like technical rap, and I think that like maybe because you and I would have like got into rap in like, well, it's like 90s rap. Like this was a period where I think like technical rap was like really prized, and then it felt like it went away from that quite a lot over the 2000s and especially the 2010s. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't think
I
we're going to agree on music.
I think some of his more recent stuff is actually really good as well. And there's like the one off the Elvis album that has CeeLo involved. There's Godzilla, which is like fucking awesome. There's still good stuff coming out. You wrote him off ages ago, despite the fact
I
that you
don't.
can admit that he's got some level of talent.
No, he's got tons of talent. That's what frustrates me about him. If he had no talent, it wouldn't bother me at all.
Do you
But
listen?
with
Do you listen
Eminem,
to
I'm
any
just like,
Connor Price?
no.
Okay, so Connor Price, like I love the clever white guy rapping. I for
Okay.
some reason like the really sort of lots of references to the outside world that your brain's trying to piece apart during that. Different
Do you,
question. Do you know Girl Talk?
yeah,
Do you love Girl Talk?
it's all right. Can I give you a recommendation though? Do you know MC Paul Barman?
No.
MC Paul Barman, MC Paul Barman was like a rapper in like the late 90s and early 2000s, and he is like the pinnacle of like clever white guy rapping. Like he has songs with Princess Superstar and stuff, and he's very funny. I think you really like him. His lyrics are super clever, super dense, incredibly silly, and some of them go through my head all the time. Like earlier when you talked about khakis, which of course you pronounced khakis, he
Khakis.
has he has a line in a song where he says, "Smirking jocks in khaki slacks with Birkenstocks and hacky sacks." Like
Okay. I like it.
I'm the hypest lyricist while they're like, what type of beer is this? It's really good.
I'm up for it. Now,
Yeah,
now I
okay.
feel now I feel like we're going into masshole discussion as well. Khakis.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think he's like a Rhode Island guy actually, or like Vermont or something. He's some New England guy. But on the clothing thing, like, look, I think you're right. Like when it comes to finding clothes, there's good, fast, and cheap. So you can thrift something, but it's not going to be fast. You can go to a place that curates vintage stuff, but it's not going to be cheap. Like you can get 2 out of 3 of these. But I think when you're thrifting, like it's nice to go into it with just like an idea and then learn something about it as you go and be open to serendipity.
Can I also give a counterpoint to the modern way of buying stuff, like the drop
Mm-hmm.
shipping and everything else? So I have, I think, maybe 3 times ordered clothing from stuff that's come across my Instagram ads that I did not know the brand. And not one of those times have I been satisfied with what
Mm.
actually arrived. Like some of them were like, oh, these cool Japanese t-shirts, and the material on them is basically unwearable. I don't want to wear a hair shirt slash burlap sack as a t-shirt, even if I like what the shirts look like. And you'll see me occasionally wear them on here because like I only have to wear them for the hour plus of a podcast, and so then I can get rid of them and throw them away. So it's a look thing more than a feel thing. I do have a hoodie and a long sleeve tee that were a sort of a gradient umber from like purple through to like some sort of cream. And I thought it was really cool. And again, the material is a bit shit. It
Mm.
happens every single time that something about them is not good. And if you're used to having pretty good quality clothing on your body, it's just noticeable, and you should start to avoid it because they typically suck for all sorts of reasons.
And I think that like that is the one of the things about thrifting is I think you have to be a bit more intentional, which I like. I do think that necessity is the mother of invention. So when you've got no money, and honestly, even if you have money, I think it is good to start off with something like thrifting, just because it does teach you a little bit from people who are not necessarily trying to sell you anything. Like, as in, you can go into a high end shop and you can say, I want to buy a coat, and like, can you talk me through like different kind of styles and help me find something? But they're obviously going to be trying to sell you some shit. And also, everything over the last 25 years has become more slim cut. It's become lower rise, so that's, it sits lower on your waist, cut shorter as well in the arms and in the legs. Everything is just a little bit tight. Collars are smaller, lapels are smaller, and I think that you lose the drama of clothes, and things like coats, especially, I think should be dramatic. Things like knits can be really dramatic as well. Like a really chunky knit makes you feel cozy, makes a person who hugs you feel cozy.
Love a
The
cable
texture's
knit.
visible.
I
Yeah.
love a cable knit and like the Submariners as well. Like I like the
Mm.
Submariner partly because I want to get warm again. So like something that like has my neck, but the cable knits are fucking awesome. And there was a somebody looked at the cable knit that Billy Crystal wears, like the
Yeah.
iconic one in When Harry Met Sally, or the
Mm.
one that Chris Evans is like falling apart in uh, not Glass House, Knives Out.
Yeah, no
Uh,
doubt.
like those are like beautiful, beautiful ones. And then they're like, yeah, you can't get anything like that literally these days because no one makes cable knits of that quality.
No.
They're much worse off. I do have some J. Crew ones that I quite like, but there aren't a ton out there that look great, and they don't look as good as those old ones.
Mm. You can get them on eBay, brother. That's where you can get them. That's where
So
they
you're
all
sa-
are. Old dead
it's
guys.
it sounds like you're volunteering to be my professional shopper.
Okay, so on my other podcast, my other podcast with my friend, he was getting married last year, and his to be father-in-law was looking for a suit, and I helped him thrift two suits, and I was like, you've got to take these to the tailor when they arrive.
Yeah,
Like, you're going to have to make some
all
adjustments.
suits have to be taken to the tailor.
Exactly. And he took it to the tailor, the one that he kept, and he wore it at Pete's wedding, and he came up to me. He thanked me in his fucking speech, and then he came up to me afterwards and like showed me the suit, and I was like, he looks like this suit was made for him. And suits, I think, are another area where it's really worth thrifting, because everybody needs to have a suit. Everybody should have a suit that's like, I would say, gray or navy. I wouldn't go black, but you need a dark suit that you can wear for formal occasions, right? But the thing is, even a cheap, shitty suit from a high street brand is still expensive. If you go and buy a suit from like fucking Top Man, does Top Man still exist? But like from a shop like that, it's still going to cost you more than you want to spend on it. Whereas you can thrift one that's actually really well made and just needs to be taken to the tailor. It'll be a much better fabric. It'll be much better quality of make. And you're going to then go and get it tailored, and it'll still cost you about the same, sometimes even less than it will cost you to buy a brand new one from a shitty brand, because suits are so expensive. So I think if you're looking for a suit, then that's a good thing to do. You should measure yourself across the shoulders, so from the peak of one shoulder to the other. You should measure yourself across the chest from armpit to armpit. You obviously need to know your waist. You should know your inside leg, but that's not as important. The shoulder and the chest are really important for the jacket. You can get and the length of the jacket overall, but the sleeves can be adjusted. Loads of stuff can be adjusted. So get these measurements, and then you can go and find a suit. And I actually at one point said to people, if you get in touch with me, I'll help you find a suit. And I had long conversations with people in my Instagram DMs where I was like, here are 5 suits for you. Go ahead and buy one. You know, they would send me their measurements and I would find them a suit.
Wow.
So I would love to help find you a coat.
All right,
I
we'll
think
do
that's a
this.
really fun project.
Yeah, and you can teach me where to thrift. You can teach me where to thrift knits. Speaking of which, we are going to have a London gathering. If you made it this far, you're invited now. So yeah, we're gonna get together in London. We're gonna have some beers at some sort of pub that serves decent beer, as opposed to the horrible old shitty cask ale that's flat and should never be drunk. I don't know exactly where. You'll find it on our social media channels, and you should follow those. Um, yeah, like we'd like to meet you if you're listening to us, and if you have want to ask us questions in person. I might even invite some friends from the football space to come hang out with us for a bit. So for those of who you want to. Have you seen the Friends episode where they're talking about getting measured for the tailor?
Is this where the tailor kind of cups more than he ought to?
Yeah, it's like they measure the inseam, and then they cup you, and then they move it to the side, and then they measure the other side. It's like, you've never been measured like that? It's like, no, It's like, but everybody does it like that, right? Yeah, in prison. And
Oh my god. All the more reason to do it yourself.
it's
unless
this is exactly where my
unless
mind was.
unless you're lonely. Yeah, man. Knowing your own measurements is basically the heart of thrifting. Like you are going to have to do that work. But that's also good because it's really hard to fuck up if you've got the measurements. Because loads of stuff, like things shrink and things change. And in the same way that if you were going to buy vintage jeans, like the size that it says on the jeans is almost never going to
Mm-mm.
be right. Like they just
Amer-
change over time.
America also changed like all of their sizes and both men's and women's. And so you're like, that's not what this actual size is over here in Europe. But at some point, America decided to make people feel less bad about their waist size. And so,
Yeah,
mm,
that is an interesting thing. If you buy like a 36 waist, then it'll fit like a 38 or 39 waist, like coming from the US. Though that's true of some stuff here as well. But yeah, I think good clothes, they should make you feel comfortable. Like that doesn't necessarily mean the clothes themselves are like perfectly comfortable. I think sometimes you have to understand, for example, that if you're going to wear dress shoes, they're not going to be as comfortable as your trainers. They're just not. Like that is how it is. And your shirt and trousers are not going to be as comfortable as your athleisure. They're just not. But they should make you feel comfortable in another way, which is they make you feel like you're dressed appropriately and they make you feel like you're put together, professional, attractive, whatever it might be that you're going for. Like all those things are legitimate things to aim for in your dress. And I just think that people should have more fun with it. Like I have so much more fun with my clothing now. And the stuff I bought when I started getting into clothing, I look at it now and I'm like, this is pretty basic. Like yesterday, I had to wear some clothes that I hadn't worn for quite a long time. But they're still from a couple of years ago. They're not like the distant past. And when I bought this pair of trousers, which are quite wide and flowy, I remember thinking, "Oh my god, everyone's staring at me. Everyone's staring at me." And obviously, nobody was staring at me at all. Now, when I wear them, I think this shit's basic. This is generic, and I think all the other stuff I wear has much more personality to it. So you can train yourself out of these ways of thinking.
absolutely. Like just getting comfortable with something, normalized thing, whatever thing is,
Mm,
like means that you can then get comfortable with it and you can wear it. Like you can strut, like, you can show some chest hair, like Patrick loves to do.
I do love to do that.
I also think that yes, have some adventure. Like fun is the whole thing about fashion. Like yes, in some cases for work purposes, it has like, a specific purpose but you can still have fun inside the work purposes. Like don't be constrained by other people's ideas for this. Figure out what you want to do and do that. That is
Yes.
the key here. Do that and be unique in whatever ways you want to. Even if you're trying to like minimalize things, put stuff on feature, display elements of it. Maybe sometimes it's just trying to
Mm,
frame your artwork on your body. Some people have tats that they want to show
yeah.
off all the time. That's a new thing. I don't have tats. I don't have jewelry. Like I could have jewelry. I probably won't get tattoos. Again, these are choices for me. But you make whatever choices you want to that show off the things that you want to show.
Tattoos have actually done a similar thing to me. I don't have many. I've got 3. But quite often people will say, "Well, if I get a tattoo, like what's going to happen when I'm older and the skin sags or whatever?" And it's like, "Brother, you'll be old. Your skin will be saggy. Like, do you really think your biggest concern is going to be how the tattoo looks?" But also, a lot of people worry about this even with parts of their body that they don't like. They say, "Well, I don't really like the back of my arms." So it's like, so how are you going to ruin it by getting a tattoo on it? Seriously, are you going to like it less? You already don't like it. And actually, I think you can reclaim those. And so the same thing goes for this. Like I I like that I have chest hair. I like that I have green eyes. Like these are things that you can accentuate with your clothing. Do you like that you have broad shoulders? Do you like that you have good forearms? Do you like that you're tall? Like, do you like that you're slim? Whatever it might be, there probably is something about you that you like, and you can design your clothing around accentuating that. And also, I think there's a little bit of it, which is just like everybody, I think, has seen something online at some point or somebody wearing something and it's spoken to them. It's like whispered to them. And you look at it and you think, no, 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 I couldn't. I just couldn't do it. But you keep coming back to it. Maybe it's on your Instagram. Maybe,
Mm.
maybe it's like, a friend, every time they wear this thing, you keep coming back to it. If you keep coming back to it, it might be worth wondering what it is about that thing that speaks to you. And maybe it is for you. Maybe it is for you. If it is a friend's, maybe you could ask to try it on. Maybe you could go into a shop and try it on. And even if you can't afford the like real one, even if you can't afford like this incredible thing, maybe you can find a version of it you could afford, or maybe you could save up for it, or maybe you could thrift it. And I think that like those sorts of things, a lot of us are like trained to turn it off because we think, oh no, I couldn't possibly wear a gold necklace because I don't look like fucking Paul Mescal in Normal People. Yeah, you can. You can wear a gold necklace. Maybe I couldn't possibly wear a silk shirt because I'm not in The Sopranos, but you could.
You could.
I
I did it. It's actually kind of a really unusual thing to wear. It
Yeah,
feels funny. Like, I don't know.
yeah, it's fun, but how did it make you feel?
Honestly, I it takes one compliment on any particular piece,
Mm,
like even in a month, you're like, yeah, I got complimented on a thing. Those shoes have had compliments many, many times. Like both,
yeah,
like the rainbow shoes and then the blue shoes. Like fucking love it. Um, and that's like look, if anybody loves your fashion on a particular day, you're having a pretty good day. Like
mm,
that just improves your day by a dramatic amount. That's often all you're going for. Or if you look at yourself in your mirror, you're like, I look good.
yeah. And honestly, isn't that the goal? I'm telling people as somebody who came out of a period where I was like, I'm kind of in the best shape of my life, into a period where I was like, oh, I have issues with how I feel physically. I look at myself in the mirror and I'm actually happier than I was when I was in really good shape. Because when I was in really good shape, I was fucking killing myself. It was exhausting and I didn't feel good. And all I thought was I never thought about the weight that I'd lost. I only thought about the weight I had to lose.
Mhm.
Now that doesn't, there's a healthy way to do that. That was about other stuff. But now I often look at myself in the mirror and I feel happy despite despite having the things about my body. That to me is such an enormous win. And it's come from taking an interest in clothing and understanding that my body is actually, I'm incredibly fortunate. Like my body works. My body keeps me alive. It sustains me. And I actually can run, even if I can't run fast. And I can lift stuff, even if my shoulders hurt. And it does all these amazing things for me. And I find that I feel more gratitude for it when I dress it nicely.
And if you do any portion of the fitness journey that we've been talking about, this will
Mm,
help you appreciate it
yeah.
because you will be able to somebody might notice like, the fact that you've been doing the curls or the fact that you have shoulder definition now or
Mm,
like anything about it, right? Like the fact that you fill out your trousers in the quads area while your butt is, ample.
mm.
Uh not shapeless. All of these things are good for you, for your self-esteem, and potentially for attracting mates. Like, I saw some pigeons in Regent's Park yesterday walk around, like, the tails out there trying to look their hottest, doing a little strut. It helps attract mates. It's springtime. That's what you need to do, baby. Get out there, show yourself off.
This is where you get your lessons, your romance lessons.
Birds.
Yeah, birds.
Bird, bird, bird. But bird's a word.
I think you have to give me credit today for making this episode chaotic, which is normally your job. But
You brought props.
I managed to. I'm sorry. I enticed you into a
Okay.
5-minute treasure hunt around your house for shit that you wanted to show off. If you're listening to this, I do encourage you to go and check out the YouTube video. But maybe we could put some links to some of Ted's expensive shit in in the show notes. But look, I think this is a conversation that I'd like to come back to. I would fucking love to get somebody like Derek Guy or someone on here because this is an area where I think things are changing and people are aware. Like as gender, I think becomes less of this rigid structure. I think people also understand that clothing has been used as a way to keep that structure rigid,
Yeah.
and they don't have to obey it.
You don't have to obey. Do what you want. Like explore. That's what we're trying to teach you all the time. Explore. Go to first principles. What looks good on me? What do I want to emphasize? What might I want to
Mm,
grow into in a fitness space so that I could emphasize it? All good. And if you're looking for starter stuff, like we've talked about a few different brands that both of us like in different ways. I also started to subscribe or just follow GQ. They'll send you an email that tells
hmm
you sort of about the cool stuff every week that's going on. Most of it is nonsense for me. Like I will never wear a fucking OG pair of Reeboks because I don't want to look like my dad. New Balance is not going to be a brand that I think is cool unless they completely change their shoe
mm.
style. But the kids these days have gone in a different direction. So explore what's there, figure out what works for you, what you love, and also like, subscribe, 5-star review, leave us comments on the podcast. You know how it works.
It's very professional. I guess we should say thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.